Captain Vex-Nine clicked her mandibles in what passed for amusement among her species. The Vorthak hunting lodge buzzed with the usual collection of braggarts, each one trying to outdo the others with increasingly ridiculous tales of their conquests. But Vex-Nine? Oh, she had them all beat. 17 Deathworlders, she announced, her 4 arms spreading wide as she gestured to the trophy wall behind her. 17 different species from 17 different hellscapes across the galaxy. The assembled hunters fell silent. Even Crix-4, notorious for his exaggerated stories about single-handedly defeating a Gornothi war beast, seemed genuinely impressed. Or maybe he was just calculating how much her collection was worth on the black market. Vex-Nine's segmented eyes gleamed as she pointed to each mounted head in turn. The Saurian from Kepler 438b, where the gravity could crush your exoskeleton like an eggshell. The Thoraxian from Wolf 359c, where the atmospheric pressure would liquefy your internal organs faster than you could scream. She paused for dramatic effect, savoring the mixture of fear and admiration in her audience's faces. And my personal favorite, the Nexus beast from Gliese 667cc, took me 3 solar cycles to track that beauty down. A younger hunter, probably fresh off his first kill, raised a trembling appendage. Captain Vex-Nine, what makes these Deathworlders so dangerous? I mean, they are just animals, right? Wrong question, kid. Vex-Nine's mandibles clicked faster now, the sound echoing through the lodge like machine gun fire. Animals? Oh, you sweet, naive little grub. These creatures evolve on planets that would make our homeworld look like a luxury resort. Gravity that could flatten a starship, temperatures that swing from molten lava to frozen nitrogen, atmospheric compositions that would dissolve your breathing apparatus in seconds. She moved closer to the young hunter, her voice dropping to a predatory whisper. They develop reflexes faster than our targeting systems. Healing factors that put our medical technology to shame. And aggression levels that would make a rabid Zorthian look like a domesticated pet. The crowd murmured appreciatively. Nothing like a good Deathworlder story to get the ichor flowing, but then, from the back of the lodge, came a voice that cut through the atmosphere like a plasma blade through tissue paper. Fascinating collection, Captain. Tell me, how many of those Deathworlders actually walked away? Every head in the lodge turned toward the speaker. She was tall for a Vorthak female, with unusual silver markings along her carapace that suggested either high military rank or serious genetic modifications. Her eyes held an intelligence that made Vex-Nine's hunting instincts twitch uncomfortably. I am Commander Zar-Three of the Deep Space Reconnaissance Division, the newcomer continued, stepping into the light. And I could not help but notice something interesting about your trophy wall. Vex-Nine felt her confidence wavering, but she was too invested in her reputation to back down now. Oh? And what might that be, Commander? Zar-Three's mandibles curved in what might have been a smile, if her species was capable of such expressions. Every single one of these creatures died in combat with you. Clean kills, perfect preservation. Very impressive. She paused, letting her words sink in. But here is the thing about Deathworlders that most hunters never learn until it is too late. The lodge had gone completely silent now. Even the automated drink dispensers seemed to have stopped their mechanical humming. They are called Deathworlders for a reason, Zar-Three continued. Not because they are easy to kill, but because they are incredibly, impossibly difficult to kill. Most species that encounter them in the wild do not get trophy collections. They get eaten. Or worse. Vex-Nine bristled, her exoskeleton plates flaring outward in an aggressive display. Are you questioning my hunting prowess, Commander? Because I assure you, every kill on that wall was earned through skill, strategy, and superior firepower. Oh, I am not questioning your kills at all, Zar-Three replied, her tone maddeningly calm. But I am curious about something else. In your extensive career hunting Deathworlders, have you ever encountered one that got away? One that you wounded, perhaps, but failed to finish? The question hung in the air like toxic gas. Vex-Nine felt every eye in the lodge boring into her. Her reputation, carefully built over decades of successful hunts, suddenly felt as fragile as spun glass. Of course not, she snapped. I do not wound my prey. I kill cleanly and efficiently. That is what separates professional hunters from amateur thugs. Zar-Three nodded thoughtfully. Admirable. But hypothetically speaking, what do you think would happen if a Deathworlder did survive an encounter with a hunter? What do you think such a creature might do with that experience? Now Vex-Nine was starting to get genuinely annoyed. This commander was clearly trying to undermine her in front of her peers, probably out of jealousy. They would run, obviously. Find some cave to crawl into and lick their wounds. That is what prey animals do when they encounter superior predators. The sound that came from Zar-Three might have been laughter, if her species was capable of such displays of mirth. It was not a pleasant sound. Captain Vex-Nine, I think you have fundamentally misunderstood what Deathworlders are. They are not prey animals. They are apex predators who happen to look like prey to species that have never encountered true evolutionary pressure. She gestured toward the trophy wall with one of her secondary arms. These creatures you have killed, they represent billions of years of evolutionary refinement. Natural selection on a scale that most civilized worlds never experience. They do not run when wounded, Captain. They learn. The temperature in the lodge seemed to drop several degrees. Several of the younger hunters had started edging toward the exits. They learn your tactics. They learn your weapons. They learn your weaknesses. Zar-Three's voice had taken on an almost hypnotic quality. And then they hunt you back. Vex-Nine felt a chill run down her primary spine, but she forced herself to maintain her aggressive posture. Ridiculous. I have been hunting Deathworlders for over 40 standard years. If what you are suggesting were true, I would be dead by now. Would you? Zar-Three asked. Or maybe, just maybe, you have never actually encountered a true Deathworlder. Maybe these trophies of yours represent the galaxy's second-tier threats. The ones that look dangerous but lack the intelligence and adaptability of the real apex species. The insult hit Vex-Nine like a plasma bolt to the thorax. Her hunting record was her life's work, her claim to fame, her entire identity. To suggest that she had been hunting minor league threats was tantamount to calling her a fraud. You want to test that theory, Commander? Vex-Nine's voice dropped to a dangerous growl. Because I happen to know where we can find some genuine, undisputed Deathworlders. Class A threats that will make these trophies look like house pets. Zar-Three's mandibles clicked once, slowly. Now that sounds interesting. Tell me more. Vex-Nine was committed now. Her pride would not let her back down, even as a small voice in the back of her mind whispered that she might be making a terrible mistake. Sol-3, she announced. Third planet from a yellow dwarf star in the outer spiral arm. The locals call it Earth. Home to a species that calls itself human. She paused, savoring the dramatic moment. They evolved from persistence hunters on a world where everything was trying to kill them. Gravity 1.2 times standard, oxygen-nitrogen atmosphere with trace toxins, temperature variations that would rupture most life forms, and enough natural radiation to sterilize a medical facility. The younger hunters looked genuinely terrified now. Even Crixfor had gone pale around his gill slits. The humans survived ice ages, supervolcanic eruptions, asteroid impacts, and predators that make Gornothi war beasts look like decorative plants, Vex-Nine continued, warming to her theme. They domesticated wolves, for crying out loud. Wolves. Do you know what a wolf is? It is basically a nexus beast with better pack coordination and sharper teeth. Zar-Three leaned forward slightly. And you are planning to hunt these humans? Planning? Commander, I have already begun preparations. My ship, the Void Stalker, is equipped with the latest stealth technology and enough firepower to level a small moon. I will track down a few specimens, study their behavior patterns, and add their heads to my collection. Vex-Nine gestured grandly at her trophy wall. And then we will see who questions my hunting credentials. The commander was quiet for a long moment, her compound eyes reflecting the lodge's artificial lighting in patterns that Vex-Nine could not quite read. Captain, Zar-Three said finally, I think you may be about to learn something very important about the difference between hunting Deathworlders and being hunted by them. 3 standard cycles later, Vex-Nine was beginning to suspect that Commander Zar-Three might have known more than she let on. The Void Stalker hung in the shadow of Earth's moon, its stealth systems humming quietly while Vex-Nine studied the readouts from her surveillance drones. What she saw defied every hunting manual she had ever read. This cannot be right, she muttered, her mandibles clicking nervously as she recalibrated the sensors for the 5th time. The population density readings are completely absurd. Her ship's artificial intelligence, a basic model she had nicknamed Grunt, chimed helpfully. Current human population estimate, 8,400,000,000 individuals. Margin of error, plus or minus 50 million. 8 billion. Vex-Nine had hunted Nexus beasts on worlds with populations in the thousands. She had tracked saurians across planets where finding 50 individuals took months of careful searching. But 8 billion humans, all crammed onto one relatively small world? Grunt, run a threat assessment on the largest human settlements. Processing. Captain, the largest human settlements contain between 10 and 30 million individuals each. Threat level, incomputable due to numerical superiority. Vex-Nine's primary eyes twitched. This was not going according to plan. Her hunting strategies relied on isolating individual specimens, studying their behavior, then moving in for clean, efficient kills. How was she supposed to isolate anything on a world where the prey outnumbered her by 8 billion to 1? Fine, she growled. Scan for smaller settlements. Rural areas. Places where I can find isolated specimens. The scanner results made her situation even worse. Even the smallest human settlements contained hundreds of individuals. Worse yet, they seemed to be connected by some kind of communication network that spanned the entire planet. Captain, Grunt announced with its usual cheerful obliviousness, I have detected electromagnetic signals indicating planet-wide information sharing capabilities. The humans appear to maintain constant contact with each other across vast distances. Vex-Nine felt her confidence beginning to crack. Pack hunters were dangerous enough when they could communicate across visual range. But pack hunters with planet-wide communication networks? That was something entirely outside her experience. She decided to start with reconnaissance. Surely she could observe a few specimens without being detected. Her stealth systems were military-grade, after all. What could a bunch of primitive Deathworlders possibly do to threaten a ship that could avoid detection by Galactic Federation sensors? The first human settlement she approached was a small cluster of structures near one of the planet's major landmasses. According to her readings, it contained approximately 3,000 individuals engaged in agricultural activities. Perfect for observation and specimen collection. Vex-Nine activated her personal cloaking device and took a shuttle down to the planet's surface. The gravity was uncomfortable but manageable, and the atmosphere was surprisingly clean for a death world. She had expected sulfur compounds, methane clouds, maybe some exotic toxins. Instead, she found oxygen, nitrogen, and trace amounts of argon. Practically breathable. If she had been insane enough to try, her first close look at humans left her feeling oddly unsettled. They were bipedal, like many sentient species, but there was something about their movement patterns that triggered her predator instincts. They walked with a fluid grace that reminded her of apex hunters from her homeworld, their heads constantly scanning their environment, their posture suggesting readiness for instant action. Grunt, are you recording this? She subvocalized into her comm unit. Yes, Captain. Note, human optical systems appear highly developed. They possess forward-facing eyes with sophisticated tracking capabilities. Forward-facing eyes. Vex-Nine's mandibles clicked uneasily. In nature, Forward-facing eyes meant one thing: predator. Prey animals had eyes on the sides of their heads to watch for threats. Predators had eyes in front to track their next meal. She spent the next several hours observing the humans' daily routines, and what she saw challenged everything she thought she knew about Deathworld species. These creatures were not just surviving on their hostile planet, they were thriving. They had completely reshaped their environment to suit their needs, turning vast areas of wilderness into organized agricultural systems, but more disturbing was their technology. Her scanners detected electromagnetic signatures that suggested computational systems far more advanced than anything in her ship's database. These were not primitive savages barely clinging to survival. These were sophisticated tool users with planet-wide industrial capacity. Grunt, run a technological assessment of the human settlement. Processing. Captain, I am detecting energy signatures consistent with controlled fusion reactions, advanced metallurgy, and what appears to be rudimentary artificial intelligence systems. Controlled fusion? Vex-9 species had only mastered fusion technology 3 centuries ago, and they were considered one of the more advanced civilizations in the galaxy. How had a species supposedly isolated on a single Deathworld developed such sophisticated energy systems? Her reconnaissance was interrupted by something that made her blood run cold. One of the humans, a female specimen with dark hair and unusually alert eyes, had stopped her agricultural work and was looking directly at Vex-9's position. Impossible. Vex-9's cloaking device was active, and she was positioned nearly 200 meters away behind dense vegetation. There was no way a primitive Deathworlder could detect her presence. The human female tilted her head slightly, then called out something in the local language. Within seconds, other humans were converging on her location, their movements coordinated and purposeful. Vex-9 decided that discretion was the better part of valor. She activated her shuttle's emergency recall beacon and prepared to retreat to a safer distance. But as she turned to leave, she heard something that froze her in place. One of the humans was speaking into a small handheld device, and her universal translator was picking up fragments of the conversation. Unknown contact, grid reference 77 Alpha, possible extraterrestrial origin, initiating containment protocol. Containment protocol? How did a primitive species develop protocols for dealing with extraterrestrial contact? And more importantly, how had they detected her so quickly? Vex-9's shuttle arrived within minutes, its stealth systems fully engaged. She scrambled aboard and ordered an immediate ascent to orbit, but her relief was short-lived. As soon as she cleared the planet's atmosphere, Grunt delivered news that made her exoskeleton plates rattle with fear. Captain, I am detecting multiple launch signatures from the planet's surface. Appears to be some kind of pursuit vessels. That is impossible, Vex-9 snapped. Our intelligence reports indicated that humans barely achieved spaceflight capability. They should not have functional interplanetary vessels. Nevertheless, Captain, I am tracking 17 distinct objects on intercept courses. Estimated time to weapons range, 12 minutes. 17 ships? From a supposedly primitive civilization? Vex-9 ordered maximum acceleration toward her mother ship, but the human vessels were faster than anything in her tactical database. Worse yet, they were coordinating their approach with military precision, moving to cut off her escape routes like they had done this before. Grunt, analyze their flight patterns. Are these random responses or organized tactics? Analysis complete, Captain. Flight patterns indicate advanced military training and coordinated battle tactics. These are not civilian vessels. The realization hit Vex-9 like a plasma bolt to the brain cavity. These humans were not just technologically advanced, they were militarized. A species that had developed interplanetary flight capability and maintained organized military forces was not something that could be hunted with conventional tactics. The human ships opened communication channels, flooding her shuttle with electromagnetic signals. Her universal translator worked frantically to decode the messages, but what came through made her blood freeze in her veins. Unknown vessel, you are in violation of Sol System territorial boundaries. Reduce velocity and prepare to be boarded for inspection. Territorial boundaries? Sol system? These humans had claimed their entire star system as sovereign territory. This was not the behavior of a primitive species. This was the behavior of a spacefaring civilization with military capabilities and territorial ambitions. Vex-Nine reached the Void Stalker just as the human ships entered weapons range. She docked with emergency protocols, sealing her shuttle bay as her ship's defensive systems came online. For the first time in her hunting career, she was not the predator. She was the prey. "Captain," Grunt announced with what she was beginning to suspect might be programmed sarcasm, "incoming message from the lead human vessel." "Put it through," Vex-Nine ordered, trying to keep the panic out of her voice. The face that appeared on her view screen was unmistakably human, but there was something about the eyes that reminded her uncomfortably of Commander Zar-Three's warning. These were not the eyes of prey animals. These were the eyes of apex predators who had just detected a threat to their territory. "This is Admiral Sarah Martinez of the Earth Defense Force," the human said, her voice calm and professional. "You are trespassing in human space without authorization. Identify yourself and state your intentions." "Earth Defense Force?" Vex-Nine's hunting instincts screamed at her to run, but she was surrounded by 17 human warships, and running would only confirm that she was a threat. "I am Captain Vex-Nine of the Galactic Hunting Consortium," she replied, trying to project confidence she did not feel. "I was conducting routine wildlife surveys in this system." Admiral Martinez's expression did not change, but something flickered in her eyes that made Vex-Nine's exoskeleton crawl. "Wildlife surveys," the human repeated. "On a planet with 8 billion sentient inhabitants and a spacefaring civilization. How interesting." The way she said, "interesting," suggested that she found it anything but interesting. In fact, she sounded like she found it insulting. "Captain Vex-Nine," Admiral Martinez continued, "I think you and I need to have a conversation about the difference between wildlife and people. And about what happens to hunters who mistake one for the other." As the human ships moved into formation around the Void Stalker, Vex-Nine finally understood what Commander Zar-Three had been trying to tell her. The real danger of hunting Deathworlders was not that they were hard to kill. The real danger was that they might decide to hunt you back, and judging by the tactical precision of the ships surrounding her, humans were very, very good at hunting.